Hi, kids. I'm Dr. Ruth, pen name Ruthy Ballard, and I'm back with another Up in the Loft video where I read from my exciting science-rich fantasy novels. If you follow me on YouTube, you might have noticed that the loft depicted just now in the lead-in segment is not the same loft where I'm recording this video, and there's a good reason for that. When I started the series, I lived in Sacramento, California, in a small house that had very little room for my creative activities. It got even smaller when the pandemic hit. My elderly mother moved in, and my husband and I were both teaching our classes at Sacramento State University on Zoom from home. Cramped indeed, and the only private place where I could sit and write my books and draw in peace and quiet was in the storage loft above my office, accessible only by a ladder. Turns out that house in Sacramento became far too cramped after 2 years of all of us living on top of one another, and we decided to move. Not next door or across town, but hundreds of miles north to the Oregon coast. Our new house is far more roomy, and I not only have a large glassed-in studio accessible by stairs, I still call it my loft, but I have a tower room too. A tower room, you might ask? What the heck is that? Well, I'm going to show you. It caps our 5-story home and is perfect for just about any creative activity you might imagine. Come on, let's take a peek. And when we get there, I'll read you an excerpt from Elvia and the Gift of Passion, where Elvia checks into her digs on Amdar Island, which are much like the accommodations in the tower room, as you'll see, only they're at the tippy top of a lighthouse. Here we go up the stairs to my loft. I have stairs now, not just a ladder. There we go. And here's my loft, my new loft in Oregon, up in the trees with tons of room, plenty of space for me to do my drawing and my writing and other work that I do as a forensic DNA specialist. I even have a secret reading space back here. That's where I can sit and while away the time reading. And then these are the stairs to the tower. So up we go. Up we go. And here's the tower room. It's a little bit like a lighthouse, isn't it? Great places to hang out and read. Look at the bay down below, search for eagles and whales. That's right, this is my new place. And while I'm up here, I'm going to take the chance to read to you. Amdar. Amdar was a tiny island. It was only 7 miles long and 3 miles wide, with one town, Amdar Village. It was a chilly prominence in the southern sea with tempestuous weather. Visitors had to bundle up, especially when the terrible winter storm swept in from the south. Still, it was always busy. People came from all over Earth to enjoy the island's legendary shopping. Boats sailed into the harbor almost every day, including cruising submarines, like Phantom of the Sea, Pearl Diver, Moon's Shadow, Down Under Wonder, and of course, the Sunken Treasure. In order to accommodate the guests, the island was peppered with expensive ducky sacks and breakfasts, upscale restaurants, and specialty shops. By tradition, uppies with passionate findlings lodged in a small guest bedroom at the tippy top of the famous Amdar Lighthouse, beside the light itself. Lacey was the sole exception. Her trunk was too wide for the steep stairs that spiraled up to the eyrie. She bunked instead in the basement, where she could spread out, leaving the upper reaches of the lighthouse to her findlings. She ventured upstairs just to check on the light every evening, carrying out the maintenance tasks that ensured its dependable 1052 flashed day and night. Uppies who striped in passion had to take a course in lighthouse maintenance, and while it certainly hadn't been one of Lacey's favorites, she passed it with a C, without taking shortcuts or manipulating a professor. The Amdar Lighthouse in particular was finicky and vulnerable to go out without warning. Lacey had plenty of other duties too. The Lighthouse Commission held visiting uppies to high standards. In addition to servicing the enormous battery and polishing the lenses, Lacey was required to keep the lighthouse building and its grounds impeccable. In short, Lacey was busy. However, she wasn't about to let this curtail her shopping. She departed the lighthouse first thing at dawn without eating breakfast and eagerly trekked the half-mile to Amdar Village. She arrived just as the shops opened and spent the morning reveling in her clothing allowance, making one shrewd deal after another, wielding her beauty to manage her budget. Alive, meantime, was thrilled with her little hideaway under the eaves, and she spent her first few days up there, watching bizarre crimson seagulls drift by the windows. They peered at her curiously with glistening blue eyes, and listening to the rhythmic roar of the surf, invisible as it crashed and swirled on the jagged rocks below, obscured by thick fog. The weather was biting cold and drizzly, and Alive wondered if it would ever clear. Still, it made holing up more appealing as she settled into her new digs. The room was stocked with novels, including a 6-book series for young readers called Abel of the Northern Wastes. Alive got hooked on the characters and plots and lost track of time. You may have noticed that Elvia in The Gift of Passion, the main character is Elvia, but in what I just read, all of a sudden her name is Alive, Alive. And that's because kids on the earth anagram their names, their birth names, to create their own, what they call rename, which is a name they choose for themselves. And Earth children do this at around the age of 10 to 12, something like that, years old. And they go by that rename the rest of their lives. So Elvia anagrams to Alive. And that's her name for a lot of this book after she does her renaming. Thanks for listening to this Up in the Loft video special about magical lofts. Shh.